Hey guys, although Through Helping Back is an excellent podcast with a lot of great ideas, I do want to let you know that in no way is Through Helping Back expected to be perceived as or relied upon in any way as specific medical advice or mental health advice for you personally. The information provided through Helping Back on our website or our podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment that can be provided by your own providers. Do not use our content in lieu of professional advice given by qualified medical professionals, and do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking professional advice because of the information you have read on our website, heard on our podcast, or otherwise received from us. Although we love discussing issues related to healthcare, mental health, and addiction, we are not providing direct healthcare, mental health care, medical, or nutrition therapy services. We're not attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure in any manner whatsoever any physical or psychological ailment, any mental or emotional issue, disease, or condition. We are not giving you specific medical, psychological, or religious advice whatsoever. Please take care of yourself and take care of others as you always seek the advice of your own medical providers and your own mental health providers regarding any questions or concerns you have about your specific health, or before implementing any recommendations or suggestions from us. These are ideas that have worked for other people. We think it's important to share them. We do not guarantee that they will work for you specifically. Do not stop taking any medications without speaking to your physician, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, mental health provider, or any other healthcare or medical professional. And if you have or suspect that you have a medical or mental health issue, contact your own healthcare provider promptly. Also, one last thing, if you know or suspect that you are currently experiencing a crisis, it is absolutely imperative that you seek the advice of your doctor or other emergency healthcare services prior to ever thinking about using our content. We love the conversations. We're glad you're stopping by. We hope you take a lot from the content. But again, for your specific individual medical situation, please always seek quality personal care from your own providers. Do not let this information or this advice stand on its own. Thanks so much for listening. Welcome to yet another episode of Through Helping Back. We are a podcast focused on mental health, addiction, general wellness, trying to bring you some hope, trying to bring you some ideas along your healing journey. It is a beautiful late September day here in New England. We're out looking at some leaves changing. You know, it's not gone crazy yet. Nature's not quite ready to take that turn. But I don't know, Ian, have you seen a lot of signs of fall coming? Because I know it's like all the pumpkin spice crap is out and everything, and people are like really geeked about it. But it doesn't quite look like fall yet. Have you seen that yet?
Well, I've seen you being worried that I walk outside a lot, and you being worried that it's too cold for me. But I can tell you, it's a great time right now in New England. So,
Ian, producer Ian, for you guys who don't know, he has that New England life, man. He lives close to the studio. He's walking everywhere in these beautiful downtown areas. He's one with nature. He's getting his steps. He's a healthy guy. So he'd be the first one. But yes, we try to caretake Ian and make sure that he's warm and comfortable. We'll see how you feel in December. I don't know. It may not hang in there.
The storm is coming.
The storm is coming. Buy your flannels now. So interesting. We're talking about nature today. Through Helping Back has brought you a lot of different avenues for healing and a lot of different opportunities and a lot of ideas around healing. When we first started this, it was based on this concept that therapy and psychiatry are great. We want you to be educated on that, but we also want you to be educated on a lot of different ways that people heal. We're all individuals. We all have our individual journey to healing, and there's a lot of things that are available to us that you may or may not be aware of that could be of great help. Ian, communing with nature on a daily basis is a perfect example, and nature, plants and herbs in your environment can play a huge part in your healing journey, and help get you connected to your younger self and deal with early traumas and get you to a healthy state of mind. We're all very lucky and blessed because today we have Uri Lee, who is a healer who works in Sedona, California right now. She also works with clients all over the world. And she integrates a lot of these practices into her work. So we're going to talk with her today. We're going to learn how nature and what nature provides us can provide a boost, can provide a stimulus to our healing journey and help us through those rough patches. And we're going to become familiar with her healing work with regard to regression and healing trauma and helping people get back on the right track in their life. So, Uri, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so happy to see you. You've got a lovely sunbeam there on your shoulder. So you are connected to nature and you're bringing us that information. So thank you so much for stopping by. So when we think about being in touch with nature and communing with nature, we don't really think about Los Angeles necessarily, although it's a very beautiful part of the area. So we've got the lakes here in New Hampshire, but we don't have so much of the beach until we get to Maine, and then the water is about 55 degrees, and colder. So we kind of freeze out in the water there in Maine. But there's something to that, right? Like everybody just feels different when they're at the beach. Before we get into your exact work and kind of what you're doing nowadays, I'm always curious about people's backgrounds and what drew you to the healing arts. Like, can you give us a little bit of your story and what brought you to a place where you were interested in helping others heal and brought you into the healing arts yourself? Like, what's your background with that?
I would say I was about 34, 35 at the time. And I was being a little frustrated with my relationships with men. It's not that I had a hard time meeting a man or dating. It was hard for me to keeping a long-term relationship or getting it to engagement or marriage. So I was getting frustrated with my personal relationship, and I started to dig into personal development, what it is causing. And as I was being a little bit more spiritual at the moment, I had this engagement with God out of just blue within my sleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night. And like you said, I had everything going great. I was making 6-figure income as a fashion consultant. And I had a great lifestyle, just, as a single woman. But, my struggle was I wasn't getting into that long-term relationship. I was healthy and attractive, successful woman, like a lot of women wanted to be. But this missing part was sort of like driving me to dig deeper into personal development.
First of all, I mean, on behalf of men, we can be very challenging to be in relationships with anyway. So I can connect, and my wife can certainly feel your pain. I'm sure she's had those frustrations, but I think it's a timely conversation because right now in society, it feels like we're at this place where not just women, but all people are sold sexuality, chase the dollars, you got to be a hustler, like put off family, put off relationships, go be a boss, that kind of thing. And what we're seeing is that people who kind of follow that path, men and women, they get into their 30s and 40s and they sort of like, there's a feeling like something's missing. Like they kind of circle back around and go, okay, I got the brass ring, I got the big office, I got the nice car, and I'm still feeling like something's missing for me inside. So that's interesting that you went through that on an individual level, because I see that a lot in our clients and in society right now, that maybe they feel like they almost chased the wrong goals or left an important piece out of the journey. So I wonder if that was how you were feeling as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I felt it, 16 years ago, and I think it's still continuing. And it is collective, what we're going through, because we've been driving was to be very masculine with our way of living, very independently, very forcefully, and otherwise you're not going to survive, was what was basically given to us collectively as a society. And not a lot of people are now getting out of that, realizing it, this is not serving us. So we're all sort of like, acting together from soul level.
And I have seen a resurgence now. They call it like trad life or traditional life type of things, where they're getting more towards reconnecting with nature. People are buying farms. People are moving out of the cities. They're grounding. They're getting sunshine. They're growing their own food. Here in New England, I pass eggs for sale on the road on the way home, and fruits and vegetables that people are growing themselves, honey. And I've seen, especially post COVID, I've seen a real explosion of that where people are connecting with it and then deciding, you know what, I like this better. And they're sort of investing in that side of it and walking away from the other stuff that they thought was so important to them. So, what is it like to get a message from the universe? What is it like to talk to God?
It was a life-changing experience. It was very, very sudden and intense, because when I was getting that message, that fight between the angel and devil, I literally, saw and felt that as like my soul is being battled by this forces of light and darkness. Like, no, you're not going to the side of that side. And then my light got bigger. So it's like, no, she's coming with me. And then dark is, no, she's staying where she's supposed to. So I literally felt that. I mean, the bed where I was sleeping, I was awake at the time when this was all happening. My bed was shaking physically out of this energy. And I was in the 70 degrees air conditioned room, and I was sweating. All my bed was wet out of my sweats. So even though I didn't take any kind of substances, I had the biggest journey ever at the age of, I believe I was 35 years old. Yeah.
So the bed stopped shaking and you're there. And so what's next? What changes did you make, and how did you put this epiphany into action?
I felt immediate peace afterwards, and I felt the presence of God, sort of like calming me down, and, you're gonna be okay. And I came back I was actually traveling at the time, and I was in Florida, came back to California, and I went for a walk, and was able to listen to God and having a conversation with God about like what to do next. I was doing really well with my career at the time, so I didn't have no idea what I was supposed to do. And just like, you're just gonna be guided, just trust and walk. And I was like, okay, well, who am I supposed to hear? How do I hear? And I asked, well, just give me just give me an opportunity to show me what to do. And you show me the people, show me what to do. And a week later, I met my ex-husband, who actually was suffering from very serious anger issues, panic issues, which I didn't know at the time. But at the same time, he also introduced me to herbs from Amazon. So that brought me to open to expand where I could go. And I thought at the time, oh, maybe this is it. This is it. The herbs from Amazon, a lot of healing properties from there. And at the same time, the Amazon was being destroyed by oil explorations, and I got to do something about it. So this is perfect. So I started to work with that herb company named Amazon Herb Company. And yeah, I was an ambassador. I went to Amazon, and that's when I first introduced to ayahuasca, and got to meet all the herbs, the healing herbs, and I loved it. I loved all the herbs that was, helping us for the modern society. So I worked with the company with those herbs for 3-4 years.
It's amazing. Yeah. So, why'd you stop? Why'd you move on if that was such a good fit?
Well, the company actually wasn't able to continuously provide what we needed. So, and it's a company where John Eastering, who actually married Olivia Newton-John, which they were the one who were the pioneer for making this, bringing to the public. And I worked closely with him. And later on, they actually ended up, getting married in Amazon, with herbs blessing them, and we're part of all of that. But I don't think the Western society was quite ready to receive herbs. I still wish that these herbs can be available. Some of them are by some other herbal companies. And I'm still asking for John to bringing this back because we need it so badly. But yeah.
Well, and I think that's, so in my world as a therapist, for 20 years, it was get people to a psychiatrist, get them the pharmaceutical medications. And that's the only option. You have the pharmaceutical piece, the end, all the rest of it is mumbo jumbo, and it's just that's for the hippies. It's not real medicine. You know what I mean? And where I'm at now in my evolution is I've seen so many people helped by the things that I was told had no benefit for all of those years, that it kind of opens my mind to all possibilities, right? Like what else is helpful that we don't know about? Ayahuasca is a perfect example, right? I mean, that was strictly taboo, and the idea of incorporating that into a healing journey would have been no way. I mean, they probably would have come for my license if I recommended that, 15 years ago. But now it's really making a resurgence, and we're hearing a lot about that. So I'm assuming there's been personal experience with that. I mean, you found that to be personally very beneficial, and do you work with that still and utilize that still, or is that something you did and then moved on from?
So I had my personal experiences. My husband, who has such a traumatic childhood, had done series of that ceremonies, and I watched it over. And because at the time I didn't really have a lot of traumas, I didn't really feel called to work with it personally, but I worked with other herbs from Amazon. Yeah, and I've seen changes from my husband and a lot of the other people who was taking the ayahuasca, healing from it. So I thought it would be an amazing plant for people with serious problem to work with. I didn't know too much about it. And later on in my life, I got a lot of PTSD from my marriage. So so I've utilized not only ayahuasca but some other plants. About 5 years ago, I started to walk the path of my own healing journey, utilizing plant medicine. Yeah, different types of plant medicine. I've tried almost everything that is available, and some of them I incorporate and recommend. And I do a lot of integration for the people who's gone down to doing the ceremonies in jungle and not necessarily getting that integration therapy out of the shamans because they don't necessarily speak your language and they don't know what living like in modern societies with marriage, with children, and how we live. And my skills are being best served as an integration therapist, spiritual counselor.
I'm so torn where to go next because I love your story, and you probably don't love. There's pieces of your story you probably don't love, but I see this career arc. It's going great. Nope, start over, and then you desired a relationship. You get married. You're going through this, and then now you're describing it as PTSD. So I keep looking, at your ups and downs, and so I think I kind of want to go that way first before we get into the herbs. How have you stayed able to help other people? How have you stayed centered despite having to kind of ride those waves in your own life?
A lot of people go through this toxic marriage relationship, which most people go through these type of relationships, and they wake up and then they start their healing journey. That was my case as well. As a counselor, as a therapist. And I just dig deeper because, if 10 years of my marriage was dedicated for becoming healthy with herbs and superfood as a career. But then the other part was, how are we going to heal my relationship with my husband who has an incredible anger issues? So within that 10 years, we literally went around the world to find a cure for his anger issues. He worked with ayahuasca, a different, medicine, peyote, San Pedro's, shamans from Native Indians, Asian methods, and I became a chi master from Asia because that, I thought that could help him because I had an experience with it. Manta Chia became my mentor. So I learned to work with Taoism and work with, his healing method and anything relating to brain functionality to reset your brain, utilizing techniques, herbs, superfoods. I mean, you tell me, we probably tried everything that is available. So I became like an expert at, working with all these different, herbs physically, mentally to regulate your system, meditation, prayer techniques, and visualization. We were a big part of Agape to associate ourselves with the practitioner. They are working with the practitioner to get our marriages sorted and therapy, regular therapies. We work with the Maori healers from New Zealand on healing through. So just for that 10 years, trying to heal our relationship with his anger issues, it brought me to touch all these different parts of healing modalities from all over the world.
It's so interesting how God or the universe, whatever you believe, exposes us to things to learn, right? And you don't realize it at the time, but looking back, you're like, oh, I had my first introduction to these things that I became really passionate about or make a lot of sense for my life now, but I did it in a very kind of negative context or dramatic context, searching for a solution to a toxic relationship. So it's, if there's one thing I could say for everybody, it's that one, you're probably not going to feel the way you're feeling forever, and trust the process, because you may be in a very dark place now, but you may be picking up tools and equipment that are going to be very helpful to you when you're on the other side of that. And it's hard to feel like that in the moment, though, when you're flying to New Zealand and saying, why is my husband so pissed off? Like, that's going to be a hard thing to see in that moment. But here you are using those skills to help other people, which I think says a lot about you as well.
So now I call it a gift. My husband actually was a gift for me.
And my heart breaks. I mean, I sincerely listen to this story, and I think about two people who are literally traveling the world to find an answer to something that's burning within them. You know what I mean? And so it's here. Everywhere I go, there I am, right? It's with me at all times, and anger, it's like a fire, it's, if used appropriately, it can heat the house, but if it gets out of control, it'll burn that same house down, and you're carrying that everywhere and desperately searching for those answers. I don't want to go too far into it in somebody else's story, but did he find peace? Has he found an answer? And or is this an ongoing search?
It's been an ongoing search, and that's why I had to put a stop on it, and I had to call it up, because otherwise I would have gotten seriously ill. If I didn't get out of the relationship, my healer at the time warned me that you're going to get a cancer. And I felt like that's where I was going. So I had to put a stop on it. And then I got out. And that's when I actually went into deeper spiritual healing, utilizing a lot of plants medicine.
So let's shift gears there and let's talk about that. I mean, I don't necessarily need a list of, everybody wants their list, right? Give me the top 3 plants that are going to make me feel great. I'm not searching for that, because that sort of short circuits the whole process. But tell me a little bit about how that integrated piece. You said I work with integrative approaches. How much of it was technique? How much of it was understanding? How much of it was the plant / medicinal help? I mean, how did you weave those 3 together? And maybe there's other factors, but how did you build that up together?
I became a clinical hypnotherapist as I was leaving my relationship, because that was something that one of the colleagues were, okay, you guys got to try this. This will help, heal your relationship. So I looked into it. I was amazed with that. It's called the RTT practice. It's a hypnotherapy technique developed by Marissa Peer. And I was amazed. I became a practitioner right away, and I started to practice on him, and it really worked. it just worked for me. My intention to work with that was I needed peace in my life because I felt like I was in a better, field all the time, walking on the eggshell all the time. I didn't feel the peace. So my intention was to feel the peace, and I got that. I feel that now, and I felt it ever since I integrated deeply and when I left that relationship completely. My ex's intention, though, wasn't that. His intention was to become very successful with his career, utilizing that practice, and he did. He became very successful with his work. So I have a pretty good faith on that practice, and I became the hypnotherapist. And at the same time, I started utilizing the plant journey. And mainly it was mushroom. And it changed my life completely beyond how I was healing from hypnotherapy. So when I combine these two pieces together, it's kind of the hypnotherapy is kind of a framework for your mind. And this plant work was sort of like merging them together. It's integrating together. So your healing isn't separate so that you feel great with the plant and you come back to the life and you don't know what to do. So it's just guiding it through, integrating through beautifully.
And you mentioned the mushrooms, and that's also something that's gaining a lot of attention, sort of like reishi and lion's mane and things like that. We're hearing more about that and sort of in the nootropic, like mind space, you know what I mean, to get people into kind of the thing. So was it trial and error? Did you have somebody prescribe or direct you to specific plants, or was it just learning how to understand these plants and then experimenting? Like, how did you find the answer?
So I was lucky enough to have some amazing guides who were experienced working with different plants over the last decade. So I had a good mentor and guide. So I was in a very safe place, and it was given to me in the right dosages, and it was a lot of them were psilocybin and some other herbs that was combined together, including ayahuasca. And I'm also a little bit of a curious rebel, so I went ahead and researched in if there was any other ways for me to experience different types of modalities throughout. And what I came to realization is if it's not integrated, it's just could become another escape.
Same thing in my world, right? So people talk about that. Should I go see a psychiatrist? Should I see a therapist? Should I, and I think that the more people that you can get working on your side, the better, because they all see things from a slightly different view. And yes, therapy will help you a certain amount of percentage. Practices like you engage in will help a certain amount. Medicine will help a certain amount. But when you put them together, that's where you really get the lasting effects, and you can find that peace that is sustainable. That's not just, I feel good when I'm using the substance, then I feel bad again. No, you can feel good after. It can last, and you can get to a sustainable place of peace like you've gone to. Kind of going back how I was raised and things like that, you think about mushrooms and, those were labeled as drugs and identified as bad, and they kind of had scary connotations about it. So, I mean, were you nervous? Were you scared of crossing that line, or were you pretty comfortable because of the guides that you had and you trusted them?
Yes, I think the guides and, have a pretty good intuition myself. And I'm a little fearless, so I think I was pretty good with that. And the other thing is that I was with my husband, who already started ayahuasca journey 15 years ago. So and these other different types of modalities that utilized. So I've seen many times over and over again him utilizing these plants as a modality. So it wasn't so foreign for me nor scared. But as I start seeing participants, a lot of them feel scared to take this medicine because they have no idea how they will react, because it's not guaranteed by like the doctors. And that's where your intuition probably needs to come into a place where we are quite lack of right now. Our intuitions are not necessarily activated because of all these conditions that were put on. So we have a very busy minded, we have a lot of fear in our mind that is not necessarily like looking to navigate this unknown healing modalities.
Well, that's why in my world we've seen the explosion of anxiety disorders, because people are scanning for danger at all times and they're seeing it. Real danger is real danger, but they're also seeing it in places where it's not necessarily real or impactful, right? Everything becomes a perceived threat. And when we can't find a perceived threat in our immediate environment, we start looking into the future. Like, I'm okay for now, but tomorrow, but that meeting, but that conversation, and we scare ourselves in advance, right? And we get that anxiety cranked up as if the constant scanning really serves any kind of purpose other than to activate those systems that make us feel uncomfortable and make us feel the anxiety. So some hijacked survival mechanisms there for sure. And a busy world. We have busy minds because we live in a busy world. I mean, the screens and social media and the constant flow of information. I mean, if you think about just how many pieces of information we digest as compared to 1, 2, 3 generations ago, it's overwhelming. So no wonder we feel like that. So you had mentioned being a curious rebel and doing a little bit of investigation and research. So if there's other curious rebels out there that are thinking this might be an option for them, what should they research? Or do you have any like recommendations as people start their learning about this?
Like I said, it's available out there and you can get it through different sources. If you start looking for it, you'll probably get to it because it's widely available right now in some form.
Before we go on, I want to say a few words about Anew Behavioral Health. Anew Behavioral Health is an outpatient provider of mental health and substance abuse services in Ohio and New Hampshire. That means that Anew can successfully treat mental health and substance abuse issues or dual diagnosis if you're struggling with both. Their integrated approach allows for them to successfully address issues related to anxiety, depression, addiction, trauma, and really anything that stands between your life and the life you could be living. You really cannot bring them an issue that they have not successfully treated. They have also solved one of the biggest problems for people seeking help. They have a dedicated team waiting to hear from you at helpnow@anewbh.com. If you contact them today, within 24 hours, you will have heard back from, wait for this, a real live person, and will also have your first appointment scheduled at that time. So how do you contact them? Well, if you're in Ohio or New Hampshire, you're probably close to one of their local locations. You're welcome to go in. If not, you can always reach them online at anewbh.com. And if you're interested in services for you or loved one, use that address, helpnow@anewbh.com. How do you start though? Like if you have a client who comes in and works with you, how do you start to educate them?
I educate them by first recommending some books to read and podcasts to listen to. And also I have them really feel into, how do you feel about this? Because ultimately, if this is something that would be good for you, more than the research.
So feeling it, trusting it, your intuition again.
Right. And then if they are like, I'm scared, I just don't know what will happen, I would never recommend them to go on this route, because what it means is if it's showing in your conscious level, and everything that will be shown through a planned journey will be revealing from your subconscious. And if you're scared, everything that is associated with that will submerge first, which is, I've seen it. That's what you see from people going psychosis and people going like exorcism, which I have seen many, many times, not even with the plants, but just going to guided breath work. People can go into complete exorcism. I never recommend if you don't want to, do it because you're scared.
Now I'm extra scared. Couldn't you say? You said exorcisms. It's like, and listen, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. If people think that the stuff that the doctors are giving you doesn't create adverse effects sometimes, you're kidding yourself. Like any medicine, any substance, any chemical has the potential to produce side effects and unwanted consequences based on your body and how it goes to. So this is not exclusive to mushrooms or ayahuasca and like that. I mean, antidepressants have caused this in people. The attention deficit medications have caused this. Caffeine has caused this in high dosages. You know what I mean? So it's really the relationship and the context, and I think your individual experience with each one makes a big difference.
I would say it's not necessarily a side effect of the plants, but its effects, negative effects, are coming from your conditions, from both emotional state and your physical state.
If you open that door, you don't know what's coming through necessarily.
Exactly. That's why you want to work with a very trained, intuitive guides, because there are many guides out there right now, as they have the supplies, and I see it right and left that this is available so much, but are they able to deal? I mean, it's not something that happens, of more than 50% of the participants. It's just maybe, 5% of the participant may go through this very difficult, intense time. And are they able to handle this type of situations? Are they trained enough? Are they experienced enough to know how to navigate you out? Because many people will go through that difficult stage, getting out of the negative state. Then are those guides prepared to get you through?
So as a healer and as a guide, I'm actually very curious about this. You get somebody into a state, this latent content, the subconscious content rises to the surface and it emerges. We talk about working with that material or guiding them out. How do you work with that? Okay, they're in a state, they're feeling these things, they're having these experiences. Maybe regression is happening. Those things that have hurt them have come to the surface. What does that work look like? Are you sort of talking them through that? Are there bodily techniques that take place? Like, how do you help them process?
It all involves by observing and understanding what that individual would need at that moment. It would mean that simply they need some water or drinks. They may need some hugs or holding hands. And sometimes they need some talk to walk through, or they may need to be laid down and massage certain areas where the symptoms are arising. So there are many areas that you may want to be trained for as a guide to move that through. However, the most important thing is for the guides to be extremely confident and compassionate to be able to go through. So when I first engaged in this very scary moment was happening when I first moved to Sedona 3 years ago, as I was being trained with all this facilitation, and this was happening just out of meditation practice. A woman just became completely just like, it looks like another dark spirit just possessed her. And my mentor at the time, who was a Native Indian American, was observing with me, and all the healers of the world were trying to help it out, and nobody could help out. And my mentor went with the confidence that I could feel, and just like literally just talk to that, whether you call that dark spirit or evil. Hey, it's a time for you to leave her. We're asking you. It was not like, go away. It was very much like having a small talk with this energy that she is no longer wanting for you to be with her And I know that it's uncomfortable for you to leave her, but we're asking you, would you please leave her? And gently saging, the spirit or energy to leave. But when you saw that moment, everyone was freaking out. I was scared for the first time because it was serious, like exorcism. It was like watching that movie, right? The woman was moving her body like this, like, it was scary.
Yeah. No, it's terrifying.
Right, it's terrifying, but nothing that no human beings, if they are panicking, could handle the situation. It needs the confidence, calmness, and compassionate to be able to really engage this unseen force, unseen energy, whether it's a dark or some other spirit that is around this human being, to engage.
I pound the table on this a lot, but that's why if you're into the healing professions, you're going to become an artist, period, right? Because there's no science to guide you through that moment. You have to have the confidence and the expertise of having been there. And there's no way you could have a book or a technique that could say, oh, and if a dark spirit shows up and tries to possess everybody in the room, here's what you need to say. Like it's not going to happen, right? But you have to have somebody who trusts their intuition and can feel their way through that moment. And so it's artistry. It's pure artistry, and you watch a master work and you steal a little bit of it for yourself, and you put it in there and you apply it in your way, in your techniques. So I think it's beautiful. Although it's a scary scene, it's beautiful because that interaction saved this person. And I'm guessing on the back end of that experience, their life was much improved, because to get all that out and to purge all of that, they must have felt so much healthier and so much better when they were done. I mean, get your life back.
But without engaging that type of intense moments, you can become a great facilitator, because it's not just always like lovey-dovey and euphoric, like people mention about, oh, I saw this beautiful beings and pink elephants, and it's not just that. It's not always smooth, Through healing, you would actually have to engage some of these dark moments.
Well, they're hurting for a reason. There's something in there that's hurting them. It's not going to be cute and fluffy. It's not going to be a kitten. Yeah. So what may feel like kind of a silly question, but I mean, I've never been in one of these ceremonies. When you're interacting with those dark spirits, okay, is this subconscious and repressed content, trauma that is physically manifesting itself? Or are we literally talking like angels and demons and like other spirits and other entities?
In my opinion, it's the dark energies that is residing within you. And then we call that all these different things, but it's what's inside of you.
So it's not like a demon took over. It's the hurt that this person was carrying physically manifested, showed itself, and then you were removing that from their subconscious, from their psyche.
Yeah, mostly. It is possible that other spirit, because the spirit is energy that can move through and could attach to you. It is possible. But most of what you're dealing with is dark energies, trapped energies within you.
A lot of what we talked about, my background was taught this, and people sometimes think this. Like, what are some of the things that people get wrong about this work? Because it seems like there's a lot of misconceptions or some bad ideas. Like you just said, like people feel like it's, take some drugs and hug each other, and it's sort of like this, kumbaya kind of hippie thing. But this is real healing, and this is real work. So what do people misunderstand, or what do you encounter that's like, wow, these people are just wrong about how this really works? These are some bad ideas that are out there.
In one word, those plants are not there to heal you. They're there to open the door so that you can walk that healing journey for you. The plant will never, plants, especially ayahuasca type of plants, definitely do a lot of miracle work, but it's actually your body is healing. If you have physical conditions, because these plants are assisting for that clog the mind to be relaxed so that your body can work it through so that it will heal, rather than it's like medicine that like, boom, I did magic on you and you're healed, right? Same thing with your emotional state. It opens the door so that you can take a look at your wounds, right? And then it can, from that moment, because you're not in conscious mind, you're in another state of mind. So it's easier for you to make the belief about who you are so that you can hear immediately from that state. But you still have to put that, whatever you learn from the ceremony, into a practical life. So you learn something beautiful about who you are, right? But if you don't do anything about it in your life, it's no good, right? You're not really making the progress. The progress will happen as if you can actually apply it in your practical life. And that's not easy.
Yeah, I mean that is every therapist ever. That's the challenge, is laying out the plan, creating the insight with the client, and then to watch them walk out and go do the exact same things they did to get into that situation in the first place, right? It's like you're going to act your way into better thinking a lot faster than you're going to think your way into better acting, is one of the phrases that's out there about that. And your point is well taken about these substances because, like for SSRIs or whatever, things that increase your dopamine levels, it's not like you're taking a pill and it's that dosage of dopamine. It makes your body create these chemicals. So those pathways that are opening, it's harnessing the interior resources, and your body is producing more of, right? Which tells us that these things were always within us to begin with. And so what I hear you talking about is almost like an identity shift where like now I can see that I'm capable of, and I can produce these positive outcomes on my own, not be dependent on a medication to trigger that reaction, or a plant. And I think of the plants as medicine. Yeah.
So my mentor had educated me. The goal of taking this plant medicine isn't to depend on the plant medicine. Right? But this feeling of euphoric peace and joy and happiness that you can feel throughout many different plants, where we're going is, how can you take less? How can we actually get to this happiness without taking the medicine is the goal, right? How can I feel this peace that I felt from this plant medicine journey in real life without any of that? So that's the goal we are going.
Yeah, the goal of the crutch is not for you to grow a third leg. It's for right, or to carry around a crutch for the rest of your life. It's to support you until you're strong enough to walk on your own, or learn how to walk on your own, and then less and less and less, and eventually it goes away. And in that way, traditional pharmacology, psychiatry is aligned with these plant healers because they have the same goal, which is, let's use this for now as you gain the skills, and then hopefully I'm no longer necessary down the road, and that's not to stigmatize people who do. I mean, sometimes there's a chemical need. Some people do take medications and will for the rest of their life. So if you're at 20 milligrams of this or 40 milligrams of that, and you physically need that, there's no shame in that. You're not failing by not making progress. But for the vast majority of these medications, we do want to step down and you be able to do that based on the coping skills and the progress and the insight that you gain from the other work. So it's very interesting because they feel like two different worlds, but they have so much in common in what we're trying to accomplish, It's very interesting. Okay, so specific recommendations then. I mean, this could be things that you utilize, or when you're kind of speaking to that beginner. Are there 2 or 3, plant compounds or plant medicines that you highly recommend that, hey, listen, this is really good for this? Or if you're struggling with A, then B may be really helpful to you, or even just kind of general overall wellness, enhancers that you think work really well.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to recommend, but I do believe overall psilocybin mushrooms are an amazing tool. It's easy to find, and I understand some of the states are legal to consume. So I think if you are in that state, I think that would be easy to um, and because it's a pure plant, so that's what I would say to go with if you are thinking about it. um, Ayahuasca is an absolute powerful plant. Also, that I recommend if you are having deeper, situations that you want to work it through, but you really want to work with shamans who knows what they're doing. And also, again, integration, because like it's true. The native shamans are excellent and experts at working with these plants. However, because they don't have the way to integrate with you, that's a very important piece to go with it.
We put a disclaimer on all of our podcasts, but I will say directly, Uri is not trying to be your doctor, is not saying this for you specifically. These are her personal experiences and things that have been beneficial for her. I want to make sure we make that really clear on the asking of the question. I'm not asking anybody to run out and to use any of these medications or obtain them illegally and then email the podcast. Like, that's not the goal. We're covered there. But I am curious about this because I haven't taken those, and I just, curiosity. You hear a lot. And I work with a lot of patients who come in traditional therapy who are using that as well, and they're making great benefits. I mean, there's something there that is changing lives, and that makes it worth the investigation alone,
Yes, absolutely. However, what I can strongly also recommend, other than the plan, is to work with a therapist on regression, because that's how you can actually, without utilizing any of the substances, you can go to the core of your wounds, which is what I do. That's the main thing that I do. Regression therapy will take you to your childhood, which is 90% of your trauma actually stems from, and also go back to your past lives. Because if you're living in on life at the moment that's struggling and blocked and trapped, you're living in your past. Whether it came from your childhood or from your past life, you're living in your past and you are unable to move forward. If you don't feel when you wake up and refresh and hopeful, I am given another day to live my life, let's do it. But you're like, oh my God, where's my medicine? Where's my coffee? And how am I going to survive today? You're living in your past.
And not just this life, past lifetimes.
Right. So if you're living like that, feeling so blocked and struggling with your relationship, it's directly related to your past.
And what happens in regression therapy that allows you to address that? How does looking back help?
You're actually going there to break your past. It's like a literally you're traveling time, like a time machine, the Back to the Future movie. Going back to your past and look at what happened, why you created this belief and thoughts that is driving your current life, right? And it's correlated always, 100%. So what you're doing is doing the same thing as Back to the Future. You go back and you're re-engaging that story that you're creating this belief about, I'm not good enough. Oh, this happened. Oh, I must not be good enough. So this is how I would have to be engaging with anyone coming into my life. So whenever it gets repeated and repeated, and then that's why we call it the same patterns in our relationship. The same thing happened to me too. Then you stay in that pattern because that's what you know, because it's coming out of that belief. So you go back, that crush and break down that pattern, and you create new pattern from there. So when you create a new pattern, your future has to change because it's now shifted. So obviously your work has to be established from that time to make sure that you're in different story now. You took another path. Out of this two path, you took this path 20 years ago, but now you went back to the 20 years and then now you're taking this path, right? Your future is shifting. You're going to create different future.
Very simplistic. This is the troubled version of me. I resolved the friction point here at the intersection, and now I'm open to live up to this healthy version of self versus just repeating these same patterns that started here that took me down this road. And is hypnosis the way back? How do you get them back there?
Right. So by regressing them, by hypnotizing it's not like you are out of consciousness, but you are in that mind. You're in theta to be able to bringing up the memory so that you can actually work it. Yes.
And if you don't resolve that, is your belief that you will carry this into the next life as well and just continue on?
That's what we believe. Yes. As we are seeing it as a regressor, we're seeing the people's pattern from their early childhood, right? And we're obviously seeing your pattern, what you're going through in your relationship right now. It's not only created from your childhood, but it came from your other lifetime. And if we go back, it's like if we go back and visit 3 different lifetimes, it's the same belief. It's the same people. It's the same family members doing a different role. Maybe your father, you're the son, but it's the same thing. That every wound that comes out of the regression, it doesn't matter how old you are at the time and what you're doing. It's the belief that was created, and you come back, try to do a better in this lifetime.
Yeah, because it's not what happened to me. It's what does this thing happening mean about me, right? And who I am as a person, right? So if I was bullied, it's not necessarily the physical damage of the violence. It's me ingraining a belief that I'm able to be bullied. I'm a person who should be kicked around. I'm a person who's not strong. And then I carry that forward for maybe several lifetimes. And then I just get so bleeping sick of feeling weak and put upon and what happened, and I have to go back to that moment and what I've learned about myself in that moment, change those beliefs, move forward with a different understanding of self.
So it's a soul's journey. Our souls, our soul never disappear, right? So the souls traveled to a different lifetime, and okay, I'm done. I had enough of it, so I'm just gonna go. But you come back to this lifetime. In this lifetime, you are actually creating that similar engagement and story. And then now you're being challenged. Are you going to do something about it this time differently? And sometimes they do. And that's what you see from people who are living with more happiness and success and happier marriage, and because they master that, so they are doing that, right? And then if you didn't learn that, you're still given that challenge. Okay, what are you going to do differently in this lifetime?
Ian, who was that we talked to? Dan, what was his? Dan Mendelow. Yeah, it's funny. We had him on the podcast, and a lot of your messages kind of align with what he was saying. And I made the comment to him about, well, what if you don't? What if you just don't do the work and you just serve your time? And he had a really hilarious comment about, if you think you're getting out of this loop without doing the work, like you're going to stay here for a long, 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 long time. You know what I mean? There is no escaping the work. So
I utilize that to my clients. Do you want to repeat what you just gone through this lifetime? And most people say no.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, let's work it this lifetime.
Yeah, but Uri, that's such a good question, right? Like, I mean, every day is not going to be Disneyland, but generally, if you look at your life, that is the core question. Like, do you want to live this life over and over and over and over and over as is forever? And if the answer is no, or a version of no, well, there's your signal that there's work to be done, right? I mean, that's amazing. All right, so we're going to send Ian out there. You're going to give him a bunch of mushrooms. You're gonna hypnotize him. You're gonna take him back to his childhood, and we're gonna figure out why he only eats potatoes and vegetables and things like that. And if he survives, then I'll come out behind him. He'll take care of my anxiety. So if you send Ian back to me in one piece, then maybe I'll give it a try. So that sounds.
The mushrooms are vegan.
Oh, there you go. He's down for it because the mushrooms are vegan. Perfect. See how stuck he is, Uri. He needs your help really, really bad. I promise. So, no, this has been great. I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you for sharing all of this. I'm really inspired by this. I'm really curious about it. How do people find you if they want to connect with you or they want to learn more about your work? How should they find you?
I'm on Instagram. My handle is Heal with Uri. And my website is also healwithuri.com. And my work is being presented there, so you can easily find me through.
And we'll link you below, of course, so that'll be down in the show notes, and we'll find you there. So, just many thanks. We'll have to have you back as we explore this topic, and as you continue to ride your personal waves of finding some peace and then boom, dealing with something new. I hope you'll come back as this evolves. One quick question before you go: what do you think the future is for your type of approach? I mean, are we going to see more and more of this? Is it an evolving field as well? Or is it more about us just getting familiar with what traditionalists and ancient people were doing? Did they have it figured it out all along and we're just rediscovering? Or what do you think is next for your type of work?
I think this type of work is expanding. And as it's being legalized and being more open, I think we're be going more towards to this direction, because what we're facing right now is understanding the not necessarily pharmaceutical way is it working. One of my biggest work that I participate is to get people off of antidepressant, because antidepressant does not cure you, but it's a bandage. It literally not dealing with your root causes, and it suppresses all the things that you're actually supposed to work with. Yeah, and those people who's actually going through the depressions are the most like nice people with heart and delicate, and they're good people. It's just they just don't know how to be, because we have so many of these conditions that are given to us. We want to be able to get out of it and feel it and be yourself. And once you are just, guided through, you won't need it. And I have some really great guides for microdosing with certain things so that you can easily, safely get out of the antidepressant.
Hey guys, although Through Help and Back is an excellent podcast with a lot of great ideas, I do want to let you know that in no way is Through Help and Back expected to be perceived as or relied upon in any way as specific medical advice or mental health advice for you personally. The information provided through Help and Back on our website or our podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment that can be provided by your own providers. Do not use our content in lieu of professional advice given by qualified medical professionals, and do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking professional advice because of the information you have read on our website, heard on our podcast, or otherwise received from us. Although we love discussing issues related to healthcare, mental health, and addiction, we are not providing direct healthcare, mental health care, medical, or nutrition therapy services. We're not attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure in any manner whatsoever any physical or psychological ailment, any mental or emotional issue, disease, or condition. We are not giving you specific medical, psychological, or religious advice whatsoever. Please take care of yourself and take care of others as you always seek the advice of your own medical providers and your own mental health providers regarding any questions or concerns you have about your specific health, or before implementing any recommendations or suggestions from us. These are ideas that have worked for other people. We think it's important to share them. We do not guarantee that they will work for you specifically. Do not stop taking any medications without speaking to your physician, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, mental health provider, or any other healthcare or medical professional. And if you have or suspect that you have a medical or mental health issue, contact your own healthcare provider promptly. Also, one last thing, if you know or suspect that you are currently experiencing a crisis, it is absolutely imperative that you seek the advice of your doctor or other emergency healthcare services prior to ever thinking about using our content. We love the conversations. We're glad you're stopping by. We hope you take a lot from the content. But again, for your specific individual medical situation, please always seek quality personal care from your own providers. Do not let this information or this advice stand on its own. Thanks so much for listening.